Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today we're going to finish a project that I started in a video a couple weeks ago, which is turning rough-cut sawmill lumber into finished woodworking. My wife's asked me to make a bunch of Christmas presents, and this is the lumber we're going to make it out of. All of this is trees that I cut down myself and then brought here in the shop to dry for at least a year. And then in the previous video, we ran it through a planer and a jointer and a table saw and got it all down to a uniform thickness, ready to use. So these are kind of rough cut on the length, but they're finished cut on the width. So I need to cut them down on the miter saw. Most of the time you probably see me using the other miter saw, but the one that's on this fixed stand is actually really handy for something like I'm doing today. So my dad built this stand and he mounted this yardstick basically on it, and then he's got this clamp system where you just slide your stop block to a mark on here that's in line with your saw blade, clamp that down, and you can repeatedly make identical cuts so our ends match up perfectly on the finished product. Almost forgot the important part is you need to be sure that I don't just cut all of this off of one end and then find out the other end isn't square. See what we got here. Oh, look at that. So, it's not much, but if I didn't square this end up, then the ends of my finished products would not be squared up. They wouldn't be in line with each other. The other set of boards used for this is 22 inch. So I've moved my stop down to 22. And after doing this, I decided that the 22 inch boards will be 4 inches wide instead of 5.5. But it is what it is. We're going to cut them to length first, then we'll get the table saw out. And actually, I need to double check my measurements. These boards don't need to be 22 inches. They need to be exactly the width of 4 of these boards. 22 and 1/8. Oh, she's a beaut, Clark. I don't know if I've even said what I'm making yet, but it's probably in the thumbnail picture. These are Noodle boards, which is a fancy way of saying they're a stove cover. I need to take all my short boards and rip them on the table saw. I've actually got 2 bigger table saws, but they're packed over in the corner and I don't want to rearrange. So I got this little job site tabletop saw out. I'm only ripping a few boards, so should work out. Get a little bit of glue on it. And then I've got a pneumatic brad nailer. And that's what one of the rough boards looks like. I tried to get everything as square as I could get it, but some of these, you don't have a perfect edge where this meets up. So I'm going to take about 1/8 of an inch off of each end of this. That quick, I think that's enough round over. That's all I want, just not a sharp edge. Okay, so I've completely sanded this one with the 50 grit and kind of chamfered all the corners just with the sander. Now I'm thinking that sawdust kind of cakes into all the holes, so I need to just blow it off really good. Now, some of this work would be lessened by just buying lumber from a lumber yard, I'm sure. The fact that this is rough cut and it might have been in rough shape when I started probably adds a little bit of time and work to this process. But I think it's all worth it. That process of rough sanding this and filling it with putty now needs to be repeated with 10 more of these boards, which is going to take a few hours, and then I can go back through and start finish sanding. I'm using these little tripods or these little stands here so that I can lacquer both sides at the same time without scuffing the paint when I flip it over. So I'll do the top, wait about 10 minutes, and then do the other side. It's helping me move quickly when I waited too late to get started. I cannot believe how long this has drug on, but these are the finished oak noodle boards. We've given 3 away. There's 4 here. All these need are handles. They've got 3 coats of lacquer on them. I filled all these cracks in with putty. The wood filler was a lot lighter. These spots are pretty light. It doesn't look bad here, but on some of them that have a lot of small holes I filled, it looks, I'm not crazy about the look of it. A few days ago, I went in the house, I told my wife, I kind of messed up. I did not prep enough oak for the number of boards you want. I thought I had, and I didn't. And then prepping it requires planing both sides, matching thickness, running it through the jointer, running it through the table saw, and I just felt like I didn't have enough time to get that done. So it's no big deal. I'll go to Home Depot and I'll buy some wood for the remaining noodle boards where I didn't cut enough. And I thought, I'm going to get oak or cedar or whatever the premium wood they have is so that it matches the quality of these other ones. And I go over there. They have oak for $6.90 and the cedar was $6 something. And then they have poplar that was like $4.70 or I don't remember exactly. And I thought $7 a board and 2 boards per noodle board, that's easy. Then before I started loading them on my cart, I'm like, is that right? And I look, it's $7 or $6.90 a linear foot. So with tax, it'd be over $60 per board, and I need 2 boards per noodle board. So we'd be looking at $120 for each of these in lumber. This is not $120 of lumber, I can tell you that for sure. Makes me think I should be going into business full time selling lumber. Like, those prices were crazy. So anyway, I bought pine. And because the pine is so light colored, to make it a little nicer, I went with a walnut finish. And now we're going to go ahead. I stained these with the walnut stain last night. Now we're going to go ahead and put some lacquer on them. I was also trying to avoid doing 2 coats of the stain, so I put it on really thick and heavy and let it sit there for a little while before wiping the excess off. And I think it came out just the right color. Pretty dark, but not completely. It's still got some light spots where the grain is. We almost have a finished noodle board, but it needs handles. And that seems pretty straightforward. These are the handles. They go right here. But it's actually can be a little bit tricky if you don't have a plan. So first consideration is these are the screws. I could buy longer screws, but I actually don't think that's a good idea. So if you get quite a bit screwed in there, you've got about 3/4 of an inch of screw sticking out. This is 1.5 inches thick. So the holes have to be countersunk about 3/4 of an inch. I've actually been going closer to an inch. And there's not a lot of room for error because this, has to thread in there. If your hole's off a 32nd this direction, you're not going to get your threads in. When I did this before, on each one, I took measurements, I got my holes right, and it was a hassle. I thought there's no way I'm doing that with 22 handles on 11 noodle boards. So I made a pattern. My pattern has 2 sets of holes in it. And that is not because I need 2 sets of holes. It's because, see how those look like they're the same? Well, they're not. This one is just a hair off and it wouldn't have lined up. So I would have messed that one up if that had been my first one on a noodle board. I'm actually using a Craig bit, the pocket hole bit, because it's the right diameter for the screw head. It's almost perfect diameter for the screw head, and then it gives you this as a pilot hole. And then I've got a depth mark on here with a piece of tape. Now I'll drill down to where the tape is at. And that's how I put the handles on. We told our adult kids and to bring the grandkids over at 10 a.m. I put this last handle on, which 2 of these are being given away right now. I put the last handle on one of these, and I still have to put handles on the pine boards, but those are not being given away here right now. My wife's going to deliver those later. So, I put the last screw in the last handle. It said, went over and looked at the clock, it said 9:59. We told them to be here at 10. So I'm going to take this in and enjoy some time with my family for Christmas. Come back out here later this evening and watch some football and put the handles on the rest of these. I hope you guys had a fantastic Christmas and happy holidays, happy New Year. I really appreciate you taking time to watch my videos. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.